Ever wonder why the kid who grew up memorizing scripture every Sunday ends up being the one who can't remember the last time they set foot in a place of worship? It's not rebellion, it's something far more interesting. You're sitting in the same pew you've occupied since you were 5 years old. The hymns are muscle memory, the prayers roll off your tongue without thought, and you know exactly when to stand and when to sit. But here's the thing, you've stopped asking why you're doing any of it. How does a tradition passed down through generations suddenly stop with you? Is it doubt, or is it something else entirely? Maybe it's the first time you realize that belief isn't actually hereditary. See, growing up immersed in religious practice creates a fascinating paradox. The very familiarity that's supposed to anchor you can become the thing that makes you question everything. When faith is your default setting rather than your conscious choice, the moment you start thinking for yourself becomes revolutionary. Picture this, like learning your favorite childhood meal was just whatever your parents could afford, not actually the pinnacle of cuisine. The spell breaks when you taste something different. Suddenly, what felt eternal starts feeling optional. Behind every departure from family faith, there's usually a moment, sometimes dramatic, often quiet, where the script stops making sense. Maybe it's a contradiction you can't ignore anymore, or a rule that punishes someone you love for being exactly who they are. The cracks were always there, you just finally noticed them. The statistics tell a wild story. Roughly 1 in 3 people raised in religious households drift away by their mid-20s. That's not a fringe movement, that's a pattern, and it's been accelerating for decades. But here's where it gets complicated. Leaving isn't usually a clean break. You're not just abandoning ideas, you're walking away from community, disappointing people who shaped your entire childhood, and sometimes risking real consequences. Family dinners become minefields. Holiday traditions feel like performance art. Some call it a crisis of faith, others call it growing up. The truth? It's probably closer to intellectual honesty, meeting real-world complexity. Imagine you're the decision maker here, the one who has to choose between maintaining peace with everyone you love and being authentic about what you actually believe. What's your move? Do you fake it forever, or do you risk the fallout? The mechanics of religious upbringing work a lot like any other intensive childhood training. You're shaped by repetition, community reinforcement, and the authority figures you trust most. It's designed to stick. So when it doesn't stick, when someone walks away, it's not because the system failed at random, it's because something stronger intervened. Often, that something is education, exposure to different worldviews, different people, different ways of making meaning. College campuses aren't secularizing young people through some conspiracy. They're just introducing cognitive diversity at exactly the moment when brains are primed for independent thinking. Then there's the internet, which basically made it impossible to maintain the insularity that used to protect religious worldviews. You can't unsee alternative interpretations once you've stumbled down a YouTube rabbit hole at 2 in the morning. Information wants to be free, and so do curious minds. Some families respond with grief, like you've died. Others respond with anger, like you've betrayed them. The lucky ones get confusion mixed with love. But almost nobody gets indifference, because in tight-knit religious communities, one person leaving is seen as a threat to the whole structure. Here's the irony nobody talks about. The most devout families sometimes produce the most thorough departures. When you're taught that faith should permeate every aspect of life, you learn to think deeply about meaning and purpose. Those same skills can lead you right out the door. Cue the concerned relatives and the well-meaning friends who assume you're lost, broken, or going through a phase. But what if leaving is actually the result of taking those childhood lessons about seeking truth seriously? What if the departure is the most religious thing they ever did? The real-world impact ripples outward. Declining religious affiliation is reshaping politics, community structures, even dating markets. Institutions built on assumptions of intergenerational faith transmission are scrambling to adapt. Some double down on tradition, others try to modernize and wonder why it feels hollow. There's always a debate about whether this is progress or decay. Is society losing its moral anchor, or finally questioning authority it never should have accepted uncritically? Both sides are convinced they're right. Both sides have compelling arguments. As each generation drifts further from mandatory religious participation, the patterns shift and evolve. Some people circle back to faith later in life, on their own terms. Others build entirely new meaning-making systems. The cycle continues, just with different players. And here's what persists: the need for community, for purpose, for answers to impossible questions. Religion met those needs for millennia. When people leave, they don't stop needing, they just start shopping elsewhere. Yoga studios, activist movements, fandoms, therapy, all filling gaps that used to be filled on Sunday mornings. Despite all the hand-wringing about declining attendance, the core dynamic hasn't changed. People still want to believe in something bigger than themselves. They've just become pickier about what that something is and who gets to define it for them. So here's the twist. Maybe the story isn't about leaving religion at all. Maybe it's about the first generation with enough freedom to choose it authentically. When faith is optional, the people who stay might actually mean it. That's the game behind every family dinner argument and every quiet exit from tradition. But just wait, the next generation's version of this might look completely different. They're already rewriting the rules we thought were permanent.